Good evening and welcome to PJTN Online here on Facebook. I'm your host, Laurie Cardoza Moore. It's great to have you back with us this week, and we are here coming to you live from Jerusalem. In fact, you'll probably hear some noise, some music out there in the background. We are in our hotel room and we're taping this right now, but there is a big celebration going on downstairs. We've got a lot of exciting things that are coming up here in Israel, and we're so delighted and so excited to be here. So I want to thank you for tuning in and for joining us. There's a lot that I want to share tonight, I want to talk about. As you know, the whole issue with Iran and Trump signing the proclamation to pull out of the Iran deal has made big news here over the last 48 hours. Of course, last night was a little tense, so I'm going to bring you that information and talk a little bit about what happened yesterday and what is up and coming. So it's an exciting time. It's the 70th anniversary of the rebirth of the modern state of Israel. Prophets foretold of this day that would happen, that this tiny little nation would be reborn in a day, and we're just so honored and we're so humbled that we're allowed to be here, that God allowed us to come into the world at this time for such a time as this. So for those of you who are new to PJTN and to our PJTN Online, typically this program, we always produce this for you. This is our opportunity to have a conversation with you every week, to talk about some of the top news that's going on and what our biblical responsibility, what is our response to the issues that are facing Israel and our Jewish brethren. But proclaiming justice to the nation's mission is to educate Christians about their biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and defend the state of Israel against the rise of anti-Semitism. You know, never in a million years would I have thought, even growing up in South Florida back in the 70s, thinking that we would ever, when I studied the Holocaust, thinking that I would ever live to see the days when anti-Semitism would arise again. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we live during those times, and it's devastating that to see this happen. I know it is for the Jewish community, and it's really hard, even as a Christian. It boggles the mind to even think how people can deny the Holocaust, to the fact that there are people, there's still white supremacists, there are still neo-Nazis who hate the Jews, who use the same false narrative, accusing them of dominating the world, trying to control the world. You know, even the lies that we found in the protocols of the elders of Zion, accusing Jews of killing Christian children and using their blood to bake matzahs. This type of rhetoric is still going on. And you would think that here we are, we're living in a modern time, in modern places, and you think we would have outgrown this ancient hatred, but unfortunately we haven't. And that's why the mission of PJTN is so important. And so we're glad that you tuned in. The way we accomplish our mission is we produce award-winning documentary films and television shows to educate Christians around the globe. We have 21 different media partners that we share our programming with, and those 21 media partners enable us to reach Christians, 2.6 billion Christians around the globe, 200 nations. That's a lot, and it's an important part of our mission because, you know, I've always believed that there are Christians. If God has put this on my heart about Israel, that God made a covenant that is eternal, it's everlasting, with Abraham and Abraham's descendants forever, that he still keeps that covenant, and that contract is still intact. Unfortunately, in many Christian churches and many Christian doctrines still teach that God is done with the Jewish people, and now his focus is on the church. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to just warn you, if you are in a church with a pastor who is teaching or preaching replacement theology or supersessionism, if you have a pastor who says that God is done with the Jews and that his gift now is, and his blessings are for the church, I would encourage you to run and flee from that pastor. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is teaching false doctrines. He is a false prophet. And the Lord is very clear in his word about how to deal with false prophets. So I just want to encourage you to continue tuning in each week and be informed and be educated about what really is our biblical responsibility. What is God's relationship with Israel and the Jewish people, and what is our role? So, of course, we distribute those programs, and then we get to hear from all of our friends and supporters around the globe, the emails that I get of support from so many of you. I received one from a woman from South Africa who saw the issue of anti-Semitism in her community and is deeply concerned about it and wants to start an organization or start a chapter of PJTN in her community to try to reach her community to stand against anti-Semitism. Those are just some of the things that we're hearing from our friends. And of course, words of support and encouragement, and of course, your faithful prayers. I want to just encourage you also, especially for the newcomers, but even those of you who have been longtime PJTN Watchmen supporters, go to our website at pjtn.org and sign up to get on our mailing list. Make sure that you're getting our newsletters, our action alerts, our press releases, so that you stay informed about what's going on, so that you know how to take action in your community. PJTN, we want to ask you to partner with us as you sign up to become a watchman. Also, our goal this year in 2018 is to have 5,000 new PJTN watchmen sign up, giving a monthly gift. Of course, we're asking for $20 a month, but anything that you can give. Some may want to give more a month to be a watchman, and some may not have the $20. Maybe it's $5, maybe it's $3 a month, but something to help us so that we can bring programs like this one to you, to keep you informed, to talk about the issues of the day, so that you can share this information with your family and your friends. I also want to just remind you that if you haven't liked us on Facebook, do so tonight. Typically, what we do with this program is halfway through the program, we'll pause and we'll take Q&A from our supporters, listen to the comments and read them back. We're not going to be able to do that tonight because we are coming to you remotely from Jerusalem. We don't have all the technology accessible when we're out of the office or out of the studio like we normally do, but you can always send us an email at comments@pjtn.org and tell us what you thought about the program. Tell us what if you have a question that you want answered, we would be happy to get back to you. And of course, if you need prayer, please send us your prayer requests. We are honored. We have a whole team of intercessors that are praying for needs. We get prayer requests almost every day, people asking us to join with them in prayer for whatever needs they have, whether it's spiritual needs, emotional, monetarily, family issues that come up. That's what we're here for, to pray for you. So thank you for joining us. I also want to encourage you, we cover the gamut when it comes to social media. So we're on Twitter. And every once in a while, you'll hear me on Twitter. You'll see me tweeting information and taking on some of the anti-Semites who we find on Twitter, and the anti-Zionists who continue to spew their hatred and their lies against Israel. But we do encourage you to follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Some of you who are already on Instagram, we've already been coming to you in various places, kind of taking you on our trip, on our journey here in Jerusalem as we have traveled. I also would encourage you to tell your family and friends about PJTN and encourage them to join us on Wednesday nights as well. You can also tune in to our Focus on Israel show. Our Focus on Israel program is a 30-minute program. It comes on every week on Sundays, and you can pick it up on Daystar TV Sunday evenings starting at 12 a.m. On the East Coast, Central Time. It's on at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. We have a 10 p.m. And then, of course, if you're on the West Coast, Pacific Time, you can catch our Focus on Israel show on Daystar at 9 p.m. Just make sure you check your local listings to see if your network covers or carries Daystar. If they do not, you can always go to the Daystar website and you can watch the program live streaming on the internet. In fact, you can also go back there. If you miss the program, you can catch the program also. So I want to encourage you to do that. That program is an award-winning program. It's one of our biggest programs. God TV runs that show, Focus on Israel, on Mondays. So you can also get, if you miss it on Daystar TV, you can get it on God TV on Monday. I also want to just remind you, check your local listings to see the time and location of the program. I also want to encourage you to visit our events page on our website. I do a lot of traveling, and we're invited by people all over the world to come and speak to their communities. Now, I can't always go to places like India and Africa, but we have been to the UK and we have been to Scotland. And of course, I come to Israel frequently. So if you would like to host me in your city to come in and help mobilize and organize your community to take action against anti-Semitism, we would love to help you. And we can talk a little bit about that later, because some of the projects that we're working on are helping to educate parents about the textbooks, the content that is being taught to our children that is anti-Semitic. It's Judeo-Christian, it's anti-Israel, it's anti-American, but we're finding that the content in the textbooks is pro-Islamic, and the content, because it favors the establishment of one religion over all others, it is in violation of our Constitution, our U.S. and state constitutions. So it's important that we as parents speak up and hold our government officials accountable. But you can find out where we're speaking. I may be coming to a community near you. So again, go to the PJTN.org website and just go to our events page and you'll see where we're headed, and we'd love to come again to your community. If you're interested, again, go to comments at PJTN.org. Let us know that you're interested in hosting me in your community, and we would be happy to set up a program to come and see you and mobilize your community. I also would like to just remind everybody that we last month initiated our 40 days of prayer for Israel, leading up to the embassy move and the 70th anniversary of the state of Israel. So I want to just remind you that you can, if you want to follow us in prayer, you can do that on our social media outlet. We are posting prayers and scriptures to pray every day, and we would love to hear again from you. So please join us and join with us, partner with us in prayer for Israel. These have been certainly some very disturbing last couple of days with all the events going on with Iran, with Syria. So, but we're going to talk about that. I also want to remind you that we have a special limited time offer in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the modern state of Israel, and that is a book, Israel Rising. It's a beautiful book by Doug Hershey. Doug hired a photographer to go to over 200 locations throughout the state of Israel to take modern pictures of ancient photos or old photos that were taken even back in the mid-1800s. And it's fascinating to look at these photos, to see the old photos with the new current modern day photos, and to see how things have changed in Israel. It's very exciting. It's prophecy fulfilled. Also, as part of that $70 package, that is a one-time $70 gift to PJTN. We'll send you that book and our award-winning Israel Indivisible, The Case for the Ancient Homeland documentary film. And that film is the definitive film about Israel's portraying Israel's historical, archaeological, legal, and biblical rights to her ancient homeland. So you won't want to miss that. It's a great tool, again, to educate your children, your grandchildren, your friends. It'd be great to have a movie night and have a conversation. Talk about the content in the film. But we have people who have ordered that film all over the world, and we have received incredible responses from our supporters. And just remember, with your donation, our limited time offer is a autographed copy of the Israel Rising book from me, with a special note and a special scripture to encourage you for your support of Israel. Again, the book and DVD set make a great gift for those of you who are contemplating gifts for family or friends, or for people that you want to share your heart for Israel with. It makes a great tool to share, to give to someone as a gift, to share your heart with Israel with them. I also want to just remind you that you have to go, if you go to PJTN.org, this is for the special, the $70 70th anniversary special that we have, the limited time offer book with an autographed copy of Israel Rising and the Israel Indivisible documentary. You can go to PJTN.org/40 days to place your order, and that's 44 FORTY 40 days, and you can place your order, and that'll help support our programs like this one and our Focus on Israel shows. So we encourage you to take advantage of that special offer for this historic time, the 70th anniversary of the State of Israel, the rebirth of the modern State of Israel. I also just want to, again, thank you all for tuning in, and I want to open up this evening with an important scripture that I think is important to share with each of you. You know, many of you have been following the news about what took place last night. We know that President Trump signed a proclamation yesterday to withdraw from the Iran deal. And, you know, we've been following this issue for several years, and we have spoken and written about this issue that allowing Iran, not having any real ability to monitor the activity of Iran's nuclear program, and then giving Iran billions of dollars cash in a plane that was loaded up of American taxpayer dollars to give to the Iranian government as a payoff to keep them from launching missile attacks, or to agree to scale back their nuclear program. It's outrageous that we had a sitting president that was really, in all intents and purposes, paying a jizya tax to a Muslim country. And so, of course, the moment that President Trump signed that, Israel last night was under high alert. They saw some movement with some of the Iranian Guard in Syria that's located in Syria, and Israel did attack there were missiles that were pointed at Israel, that it appeared that Iran was going to have the Iranian Guard launch against the State of Israel last night. And thank God that those missiles were taken out last night. Sent a very clear message to Syria and to Iran that Israel is not going to tolerate any potential threat. I understand there were 9 Iranian Guard members who died in that incident. But this is a very dangerous time, ladies and gentlemen, very tense-filled time. In fact, last night the Israeli government was telling people to stay away from the Golan Heights. All the bomb shelters were opened up. They were the emergency crews were on high alert, expecting the worst. And thank God, nothing happened. And we don't know as the coming days unfold, because we've got a lot of activity going on here in Jerusalem. The U.S. Embassy move, the city is preparing for that, and it's amazing because more and more people are coming in to this city for this main event. Of course, PJTN is here to cover it as well, and so we're excited about bringing that to you on Monday. And I also just want to remind you all that Jerusalem Day is on Saturday, sundown Saturday night and all day Sunday. And it'll be a huge day of celebration in the city. So here we have, and our king. It's just fascinating. And then, of course, on Monday, we'll be celebrating the U.S. Embassy move. 4 countries have come out saying that they're going to move their embassy. Paraguay is going to be here toward the end of the month. Guatemala, Romania. It's very exciting to see, the difference just one leader, President Trump, and his leadership has meant to this whole issue. It's been very exciting. So we were Tel Aviv, so avoided. So to mention that coming up toward the end of the month, May 18th. So in 9 days, there's going to be a commencement ceremony at Liberty University. And for those of you who've been following us for some time, we talked about former President Jimmy Carter and his anti-Semitic book that he wrote, and his constant rant and anti-Semitic rant that's stated against the Jews, against the state of Israel. And he has been invited, former President Carter has been invited to speak at Liberty University, which is a Christian university. And those of you who are familiar with Liberty, Jerry Falwell Sr. was a Zionist. He loved Israel. He was a major supporter of the modern state of Israel. But ironically, it's quite strange. His son, Jerry Falwell Jr., has invited former President Carter to come and attend the commencement services and to speak as a keynote speaker to these students, citing the fact that he felt that the families and the students would benefit from his role model, former President Carter's role model as a Christian, and the things that he did to help feed the hungry and clothe the poor. And it's amazing how someone can look at those aspects of his life and then see a man who has blatantly lied and even written an anti-Semitic book accusing Israel of apartheid South Africa tactics. It couldn't be further from the truth. And we had written a letter to Jerry Falwell Jr. asking him to disinvite. Unfortunately, Jimmy Carter will still be there. He is still slated to be the commencement speaker, the keynote speaker, and we are going to be launching a media campaign leading up to that event to expose President Carter and to protest Liberty University. For those of you who may be tuned in tonight that have students that are contemplating going to Liberty University, I would strongly encourage you to reconsider. There are great universities like Hillsdale College that are promoting truth, that speak truth, and that do not invite people, anti-Semites like Jimmy Carter, to be the keynote speaker. So, but if you've got students that are already about him doing that, it's outrageous that he gets away with that, and he is unchallenged. Another bit to note is recently, with regards to Jimmy Carter, I found this article that I wanted to share with you tonight because, again, this restates and proves his involvement. The Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia, an NGO founded by former President Jimmy Carter, received over $30 million from U.S. aid by fraudulent certifications and provided material support for terrorism, according to a lawsuit filed by the U.S.-based Zionist Advocacy Center. and Yifa Segal, director of the Jerusalem-based International Legal Forum. The case was submitted under the False Claims Act in 2015, but was until recently under seal. The plaintiffs argue that the Carter Center, which they state is well known for its Israel views, include a broad and strict definition of material support for terrorism. Segal explained to TPS, which is a news service, that the definition of material support was established by the United States Supreme Court decision of Holder versus Humanitarian Law Project. In the precedent-setting ruling, the Supreme Court found that although the Humanitarian Law Project sought to help the Kurdistan Workers' Party in Turkey and Sri Lanka's Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam learn how to peacefully resolve conflicts, Congress had intended to prevent aid to such groups on the principle that any assistance could help to legitimate a terrorist organization and free up its resources for terrorist activity. The Carter Center submitted an amicus brief to the Supreme Court in connection with Holder, voicing its concern that if the statute prohibiting material support were upheld, it would jeopardize the center's work. The court ruled against the Carter Center's position, yet Segal told TPS the NGO has continued its illegal activities, including repeatedly hosting terrorist representatives at its facilities, offering expert assistance to Palestinian factions, including Hamas and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. These are Muslim Brotherhood terrorist groups, ladies and gentlemen. This is why Jimmy Carter should not be invited to Liberty University. I'm not sure what Jerry Falwell Jr. finds so appealing about Jimmy Carter's supposed Christian walk life. But obviously he hasn't read about Jimmy Carter and the Carter Center's connection to terrorist groups and funding terrorist groups. That should make all of us very concerned. So we're going to be following that story. I also want to just share with you, because you know we focus on anti-Semitism, and our goal again is to reach Christians in our communities to stand where you see, when you see something, say something, especially as it pertains to anti-Semitism. We want to hear from you. We want to help you in your community to confront anti-Semitism. If you hear about an incident or you see an incident, please contact us at comments@pjtn.org and let us know what you're finding, and let us help you to confront this issue in your community. There was a recent incident that occurred, footage actually, that emerged of a violent anti-Semitic assault in Brooklyn of a 52-year-old man. His name was Menachem Moskowitz, sustained a cracked rib in an attack on the way home from Shabbat prayers. His wife said, "There's a lot of fear. People want to kill us because we're Jews." Ladies and gentlemen, this is in Brooklyn. And this gentleman, 52 years old, was attacked on his way home from prayers. In the video, the attacker jumps on the victim, Mr. Moskowitz, from behind in the Crown Heights neighborhood in Brooklyn, sending his hat and glasses flying into a nearby garden, beating him, pushing up against an iron fence, and attempting to strangle him. This is a quote from the person. He said, "I turned around and I see that he's right behind me and he jumped me." This is Mr. Moskowitz, a quote from him. And then he said, "I hate Jews," Moskowitz told CBS late Sunday. "He put me in a headlock and I'm trying to maneuver out of him. In the meantime, I'm screaming, 'Help!' He says, 'You don't need help. I'm going to kill you right here.'" Moskowitz sustained a cracked rib along with a black eye, swelling, bruising, and scratches over his body. That's fear. There's a lot of fear. The thing we know is that unfortunately there are people out there who want to kill us for one reason, because we are Jews. His wife, Hannah Moskowitz, was quoted by CBS as saying. The Jewish man was walking home from prayer services and said good afternoon to a man who was smoking a cigar on a street corner. As soon as I greeted him, he began yelling at me, "You fake Jews. You are you, who are you saying hello to? You're fake Jews, and you stole all my money and robbed me and stole my mortgage and my house. I want to kill you," it quoted the man as saying. Ladies and gentlemen, this is in Brooklyn, New York. This is in the Crown Heights section where the Orthodox Jewish community resides. This is outrageous that this is going on, that there's actually people out there that hate like this. And again, if you hear about incidents like this, this is devastating that this type of activity would go on in this community. So again, what is our responsibility as Christians? You know, it says in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 16, that we are not to stand by while our brother's blood is shed. Other news I want to talk about, for those of you who've been following PJTN, you know we have been at the forefront of exposing the anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian textbooks in our public schools. But an article in Education came out a couple of weeks ago that I stumbled upon, and I wanted to share with you because I think it's quite timely. You know, back in 1962, we removed prayer from our schools. We, the United States of America, despite what the previous President Obama said, we are a Judeo-Christian nation. Those biblical principles, those values of our Jewish and Christian faith, based on the Bible, based on the Torah, are what guide our lives. Those are the values that we've instilled in our children in our country, and it's the values that made up our government. But unfortunately, we removed prayer, and as we've removed prayer, we've removed God completely from our schools. But this article came out. The title is "Trying to Understand Western Civilization Without Reading the Bible is Like Trying to Understand American History Without Reading the Constitution. It won't work." Why? Because the Bible is the foundation. The article goes on to say, the Bible is comprised of the Old and New Testaments, is, simply put, the most important and seminal work of literature in Western civilization. While for millions of people, it is also the revealed Word of God, for anyone, it is an indispensable font from which springs the art, history, philosophy, and governmental structures of our society. Biblical literacy, which is to say a basic functioning knowledge of the stories of the Bible, is essential to have a full understanding of how our society works and why it differs so dramatically from others. This is why it must be thoroughly taught in public schools. Sadly, almost 2 decades into the 21st century, biblical literacy is slipping away from us. A recent correction to a story in the Wall Street Journal gives a tidy example. Correction: an earlier version of this story incorrectly stated Benjamin Netanyahu said Moses brought water from Iraq. He said the water was brought from Iraq. The Israeli Prime Minister was referring to a miracle in the book of Exodus. Somehow, this mistake was not only made by the writer, but got past editors and proofreaders as well, who were all, one assumes, well-educated people. And this is far from an isolated example. So I thought it was important to share that with you because there is a concern about what is being taught to our children in our textbooks and how we're indoctrinating our children with propaganda. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage you with another article. Pew Research did a poll and found that 9 in 10 Americans still believe in God or divinity. And the article goes on to say that despite recent signs of ebbing religious faith among Americans, the vast majority still believe in God or some sort of divinity, the Pew Research Center revealed in a report. And so it's encouraging. I share that with you because it's encouraging to see that sometimes we watch so much fake news that we think that there aren't others out there, other Americans out there that are people of faith, both Judeo-Christian, Jews and Christians. We think that we're fighting this battle alone and the country is going to hell in a handbasket. The only reason why our country is slipping into the stand by and do nothing. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a message for us today in our time. You know, God did not bring us into the world. It's exciting to think about. God didn't bring us into the world 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. He brought us into the world today, now. He placed our souls in our physical body. He gave us all the wonderful attributes that we have, our characters, you know, even the weaknesses that we have, in order to strengthen us to live boldly and declare our faith before mankind. And if there was ever a time that we needed to live as a light to the nations of the world, live as a light in our own communities, it's today. But it takes people of courage, and it takes people of great faith to be willing to do that. I want to, we're going to be coming to a close. This member of the administration, of Bibi's administration, she is the Deputy of Foreign Affairs. Her name is Zivi Huteveli, and she is a young mother. She is a woman of faith. She believes in that faith, and she is making huge changes in the Israeli government. And she is not afraid to be bold about her faith and to live that out and communicate that to not just her colleagues in the government. Join me as we watch this brief interview, and you'll see why it was such a treat, such a delight to speak with the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, Zivi Huteveli. I want to thank you for taking this time to during this exciting time in history, to be here in Jerusalem and to have this time to visit and talk about the U.S. Embassy move. And I would love to hear, our audience would love to hear from you, because we've been following you. Many, many Christians are familiar with who you are and have been following the work that you do. And it's such a blessing and encouragement to see, and inspiring to other women, to Christian women, to see a Jewish woman who also is committed to her faith and is operating within the government. It's so inspiring. You're such an inspiration to so many women.
Thank you so much.
So let's
it's a great pleasure for me also to share my views with audience that, as we mentioned in our talk, people of faith. I think that this is the big engine of the world, the big faith, and to realize that we are in a historic era. And I think that all Israelis are saluting to the President of the United States for making this brave move, that it's basically facing reality. Jerusalem has always been the capital of the Jewish people. Since Israel was established, it was the capital of the Jewish state. So it's so natural to do that, but still, so many people around the world are ignoring the very basic facts, and the American leadership now is writing a page in the world's history by doing this, by making this act of being faithful to the truth. And I think that we're very proud of it, and we really believe that it's going to be just the beginning of a new era of moving all the embassies, all the international embassies to Jerusalem.
Well, it's been very encouraging as an American to see our president take leadership, take ownership of this very strategic, important, historic, biblically historic event, and to see the influence that that has had on other nations now moving their embassy, calling for a move.
We already have 4 countries that are following the American decision, and we just have connections to 10 more countries that are in process. And I really hope that by the end of the year we'll have 10 embassies, 10 international flags in our eternal capital, Jerusalem. And I'm sure that after this first wave, we'll have more waves of countries coming back to Jerusalem.
Amen. So when we first heard in America the announcement that the president was going to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we were shocked. We were kind of like, okay, brace ourselves. Is this going to really happen? And here we are, and we're here in preparation to celebrate. How did the Israeli government and the Israelis, how did they respond when the news first broke about President Trump?
I think people were so happy. People were so happy that our great friend, America, is doing this first step among all countries around the world. And I think that for many Israelis, it was so natural. I think the fact that most embassies are in Tel Aviv, this is the unnatural thing. Because, as you know, I'm sure some of the people that are viewing this show, they know the history, and the history is very clear. We are connected to Jerusalem for 3,000 years. Tel Aviv is a very new city, beautiful city, but it has nothing to do to Jewish history, has nothing to do to the deep connection of the Jewish people to the Jewish land. Jerusalem is the symbol of this deep connection. And this is where embassies should be. Now, every sovereign country has the right to decide where its capital is going to be. Israel is singled out by the fact that the world doesn't recognize the very natural choose of Jerusalem.
So, how are the Israeli people responding to this move? You hear some news accounts that...
Well, it's a matter of consensus, first of all. Most Israelis are really happy about it. For Israelis, Jerusalem is not just a city. It's prayers of 2,000 years. Our grandparents were praying to go back to Jerusalem. The Zionist movement is based on the word Zion, which means Jerusalem. So the whole concept of this country, the reestablishment of the modern state of Israel, is based on Jerusalem. And I think this is why this is really the heart and soul of the Jewish people. So it's much bigger than just relocating real estate or relocating buildings from one city to another. It's so much bigger.
So what does it mean to you as a woman of faith who sits in this very prominent position as foreign minister? What does it mean to you to be in this position at this strategic time when prophecy is being fulfilled? When here we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the rebirth of the modern state of Israel, and now America, the largest ally, and of course we see Israel as our dearest friend. Tell us what you think about the significance about this time, the president moving, the embassy happening on the 70th anniversary, and prophecy being fulfilled.
I think, first of all, I'm part of historic time. I think that I'm fortunate to serve in the foreign ministry. See, since I came here to the foreign ministry, one of my biggest dreams was to see all embassies going back to Jerusalem. And President Trump made it possible, made this dream possible, because for many years the foreign ministry gave up the idea that it's possible on the international level, because they said by the time a big important state will make this move, we can't do anything. And I couldn't believe that we can give up on Jerusalem that easy on the international level. And I think that this time is really making historic justice, because it was unjust to ignore the reality, to ignore history. And I think there is a big battle. There is a big battle about rewriting history. Some of the Arab world is trying to change the way history was actually written. There is a big scholar that is speaking about the process that the Arab world is going from Mecca to Jerusalem and back. Everyone knows that the holiest city to the Muslims is Mecca. It's not Jerusalem. When Muslims go and pray on Temple Mount, they put their backs to the holiest place to the Jewish world because they pray to Mecca. So it's very clear that the only place that is really the holiest place to the Jewish world is Temple Mount, is Jerusalem. And the fact that the Arab world is trying to take over those places that for many years Jews were connected to, all history books and all our Bible is full of it. The Quran doesn't mention Jerusalem even once. And the Bible is full of Jerusalem and all our prayers about Jerusalem. And as you said, this is an era where prophecies are coming to reality. One of the biggest and most beautiful descriptions of the prophecies is the fact that children and old people will play together in the streets of Jerusalem. And we see that. We walk around those streets and we see young children playing in playgrounds, and we see old people sitting all around the city. And I think it's beautiful. The fact that this city that didn't allow for many years freedom of religion now is allowing all religions to feel comfortable and natural. Christians, Muslims, everyone can feel comfortable under the Israeli sovereignty. This is why it's so important to everyone around the world to ask for Israeli sovereignty all around Jerusalem.
You know, we see you in the United States as a modern day Esther.
Oh, thank you.
I
never got such a great compliment.
Who was brought to this place for such a time as this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this
Absolutely.
analogy.
You deserve it. You deserve it. We're inspired by the work that you do and your passion and your commitment, and you're standing firm in your resolve to your faith.
Thank you.
Do you think, or what do you think the impact, do you think President Trump's decision to acknowledge that Jerusalem is the capital of the state of Israel, did that inspire and encourage the Israeli government to move forward? Did you feel that this was going to be a significant thing and it was going to change the direction of your government? Because sitting back and watching in the United States, it's like, all right, Israel's finally got a friend in the White House. And did it serve to inspire you to see President Trump take this initiative? And I ask that question from the perspective of the Israeli government and the Israeli people.
First of all, I must say that USA is our ally, no matter who is the president. We feel that the American people and the Israeli people are connected. It's much bigger than political decisions. I think it's based on values, and this is why it's so important for us to say that this historic decision of President Trump is definitely something that we're very proud of, but we're very proud of this very deep and long-going relationship between us and the United States, between us and the American people. I think that for Israelis, Jerusalem is such a natural, as I said, and such a deep thing that it's really not dependent on the international community's approach. But we're definitely proud and happy that the international community is moving forward, because we felt like the international community is a little bit staying behind the history, staying behind the very basic facts of the Middle East. And now we feel like the map is being read right and properly, and people put the focus on the right things. The fact that Israel is really the most stabilizing thing in the Middle East today. I call it really a place of light.
Absolutely.
We're a light among the nations, the way the Bible is looking at Israel, but we really do that in order to bring more peace to the world. Jerusalem is driven from the word peace, and I really think that as much as you make the reality of Jerusalem stronger, you bring peace to the world.
Absolutely.
And this is why I think most Israelis are very happy about it.
You made a statement about Zionism. You talked about Zionism at the Moskowitz Freedom Prize the other night. Talk about that, the inspiration of Zionism and how important that is to the heart and the psyche of the Israeli.
I think Zionism is not just about another national movement of establishing a state. Since Israel was established, and we were just celebrating 120 years for the birth of our first woman Prime Minister, Golda Meir, and Golda Meir was establishing the Israel International Cooperation Agency. And this is something very unique for foreign ministries, because most foreign ministries, when they give out foreign aid, they give out money. And Israel was sharing knowledge. And this is something very unique about the way Israel is working. We don't see ourselves as a country that needs just to take care of its own people. We see ourselves as a country that has universal, universal responsibility. And this is why we share our knowledge with so many countries around the world about water technologies, about agriculture, about cyber technology. All this startup nation is here to serve the world, not just the Israeli economy. And this is why the Zionist movement is such a great success, because this is not just about taking care of ourselves. This is really delivering a message to the world.
Very good. Is there a Prime Minister opportunity in your future?
Oh, thank you for this compliment. At the moment, I'm very happy for my position in the foreign ministry, the fact that I speak out to the world. I also would like to deal with education. It's very important. I think that this is the top priority issue for every nation. And followed by this, I think that your question will be more relevant. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
God
you.
bless you in everything that you do.
God bless you and all the people that are viewing this show. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. And I want to encourage you to tune in next week, and we'll be with you again at 6 p.m. Central Time. Of you, we had a
very busy week. We had a lot of people sign up to become a watchman. I want to thank you for joining PJTN and supporting us financially with your monthly gift, making all of this possible with your generous support. I also want to just remind you, we're still in our 40 days of prayer. So if you want to continue to pray with us, Bible verses, scriptures to pray also up until May 14th to the 70th anniversary. And I also want to just remind you of our 70th anniversary one-time, it's a limited offer, an autographed book of Israel Rising and our award-winning documentary, Israel Indivisible, The Case for the Ancient Homeland. And again, we will send that to you. DAYS, 40 days. And again, with your your donation, your one-time donation, you'll get an autographed copy of the book and the DVD. It does make an excellent gift to share with family and friends. So I encourage you to, again, go to pjtn.org/40 days and order your copy today. And I want to just thank our guests again for tuning in. And I want to leave you with a scripture to encourage you. It's been a difficult last couple of days here in Israel. And of course, we rely on God's word to give us courage and boldness, not to be afraid of man or fearful of our enemies, because God does deliver us. And Moses reminded the people in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 1 through 4, when he said, when you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people, so it shall be when you are on the verge of battle, that the priest shall approach and speak to the people, and he shall say to them, hear, O Israel, today you are on the verge of battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Do not be afraid, and do not tremble or be terrified because of them. For the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to each one of us. So I want to thank you again for tuning in. God bless you, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Again, if you have comments or you have prayer requests or if you have questions, send us a note at comments@pjtn.org. We look forward to hearing from you. God bless.